Okay, so this is going to be a super weird topic for me. It's something I've been thinking about a lot, and since it's October, I figured it's a good topic to do. Today's topic is going to be Obeah. Obeah, Obeah, Obeah. The curse of the Obeah man, the Obeah woman. Um, so if you're like me and the Caribbean, where I'm from, the main traditional West African spiritual belief system that's dominant is voodoo, thanks to George Ramirez, that made voodoo a central part of his original zombie franchise, Night of the Living Dead, in the 1960s. And so for many people, this is the main tradition they're familiar with. Some people also may be familiar with Santeria, which is practiced in the Spanish speaking countries. And if you're from Jamaica or Guyana, then you're probably more familiar with Obeah, all part of the same West African tradition. The term Obeah, it's become synonymous mainly with Jamaica, and it is I guess you can describe it as a sort of witchcraft or sorcery. But Obeah is a little bit more complex than that. It's mainly carried out by so-called Myal-men and women, also known as Obeah men and women, and mainly involve a lot of potions and herbs and bones and other things to carry out its rituals. But Obeah is, for Caribbean people, a mainstay of our daily lives. The thing, perhaps the most important thing about Obeah, is the way that it represents wrongdoing. Obeah officially was outlawed in Jamaica in 1854 through the Obeah Act, which made it a punishable criminal offense by flogging, imprisonment, or fine. But that hasn't stopped its stride. It hasn't stopped its stride. So growing up, that's all I've ever heard about. Obeah this, Obeah that. Something went wrong with you, it's Obeah. Bad luck, Obeah. It's always someone else doing something to you. And so, there were two forms of Obeah. There's a type that works bad, that did bad things to you, and then there was the type that was designed to deliver you from evil. This was kind of deliverance Obeah, and this is the one perhaps I'm the most familiar with, because this is the one that my grandmother practiced. As a child, remembering parts of my childhood in the Caribbean, I remember people of all walks of life coming to my grandmother because they were sick and they were cursed, and someone Obeah them. Someone put an Obeah curse on them, and my grandmother's job was to use bush medicine to wash them and pray over them and secure them, protect them from all evils. This was always the most fascinating thing to me, but I didn't know then. I never believed it then. I don't believe it now, but I still, even today, think of it as one of the most fascinating things. I remember as a child watching a young woman vomit what appears to be black goo and thinking to myself, this is something else. So naturally, I'm going to take a look into Obeah and what Obeah is, where it comes from, and what are some of its beliefs, and is it still popular in Jamaica? The answer is yes. The practice of Obeah is the belief that one can use certain spirits or supernatural agents to work harm to the living or to call them off from such mischief. So again, it is the duality. It's both used to curse someone, and it's also used to push back against a curse. Practice of Obeah, or the harnessing of the supernatural forces and spirits for one's own personal use, was known in some part of Africa as Obeah, so Obeye, which was supposedly an entity that lives within spirits. And it's taken, as I said, many names in the Caribbean: Shango in Trinidad, Santeria in Cuba, Voodoo in Haiti, Juju in the Bahamas, and of course Obeah in Jamaica. Although African slaves usually practiced Obeah for quote-unquote evil, or rather self-interest, this faith somehow also aided them in a source of strength and clandestine resistance. The practice of Obeah is the belief that one can cause certain spirits or supernatural agents to work harm for the living. Most modern historians believe that Obeah originated from the Ashanti and the Coromantun, I always get this wrong, the Coromantun tribes of Africa on the Gold Coast, who were described by many planters or slave owners in the Caribbean as being among the most disruptive and violent. They were, in essence, difficult. So it can be used for both good and evil, but generally it's a term that people associate with fear. The Obeah man, the Obeah woman played a major role in, for example, Caribbean slave resistance. They function as kind of community leader. Most people fear them. Most people believe that many Obeah men had within his power the ability to render someone invincible, to resuscitate the dead, to cure all diseases, to protect a man from the consequences of his crimes, and I'll get to that later, and to cause great harm to anyone he wished. It seems, however, the Obeah man's most powerful gift was actually not his ability to steal people's shadows or to X them, but his knowledge of herbs and poison. So really, Obeah appeared to have been a shamanistic tradition, since this is mainly what it was associated with. Someone dropping dead, it was believed to be Obeah. It was later revealed to be poison. He could cure people this way as well. So, for example, some of the writings I'm going to read something from Folklore of the Negroes in Jamaica, a very racist book, but has some very important notes on Obeah. This way, the Myal-men, or those who by means of narcotic potion made with the juice of an herb, which occasions a trance or profound sleep of a certain duration, endeavor to convince the deluded spectators of their power to reanimate the dead. So this is someone writing about Obeah practitioners in the Caribbean in Jamaica. The possessors of Obi, another term, are always and always were natives of Africa and none other, and they have brought the science with them to Jamaica, where it is also universally practiced. We believe there are few of the largest states possessing native Africans which have not one or more of them. The oldest and most crafty are those who attract the greatest devotion and confidence. Those who hoary heads and somewhat peculiarly harsh and forbidden aspect, together with some skill in plants of the medicinal and poisonous species, have qualified them for successful imposition on the weak and the credulous. The Negroes in general, whether Africans or Creoles, meaning native born, revere, consult, and fear them. To these oracles they resort, and with the most implicit faith, upon all occasions, whether for the cure of diseases, the obtaining revenge for injuries or insults, the conciliation of favors, the discovery and punishment of the thief or adulterer, and the prediction of future events. The trade which these impostors carry on is extremely lucrative. They manufacture and sell their obies, O-B-I-E-S, adapted to different causes and at different prices. A veil of mystery is studiously thrown over their incantations, to which the midnight hours are allotted, and every precaution is taken to conceal them from the knowledge and the discovery of the white people. As I said, very racist, but in cases of poison, the natural effects of it are, by the ignorant Negroes, ascribed entirely to the potent workings of Obi. The wiser Negroes hesitate to reveal their suspicions through a dread of incurring the terrible vengeance which is fulminated by the Obeah men against any who should betray them. It is very difficult, therefore, for the white proprietor to distinguish the Obeah possessor from any other Negro upon his plantation. And so infuriated are the blacks in general that but few instances occur of their having courage enough to impeach these miscreants. So there is a description of Obeah working. Generally speaking, the practice of Obeah and the way it was outlawed in the Caribbean is deemed to be more or less racist. The practice itself was highly influential when it comes to political resistance in the Caribbean against the slave trade. Not only were the so called originators of this practice descendants of the Ashanti, the so called Coromantans or Cromantans, who were deemed to be the most difficult in the Caribbean, so much so that they were outlawed as slaves, as they were known for, well, most of the slave rebellions. So, Obeah was not only used as a source of power through its association with the supernatural, but specifically slave rebellions and the other forms of resistance in Jamaica. The Obeah man often was an inspirational leader who could entice and encourage, which might, number in the thousands to partake in resistance and rebellions. Because of their relation with evil, Obeah men were blamed for every mishap that fell on a plantation or an individual, so many white slave masters often were encouraged not to entertain them, so to speak, were encouraged to get rid of them, arrest them, and flog them to use them as an example for those who may take part in rebellions. It is generally understood that Obeah is in the Caribbean, and the laws against it were basically the Caribbean equivalent of the witch trials of Europe. These were known as the Obeah trials. Throughout the years, over 100 people have been charged with practicing Obeah. There is a database, Caribbean Religious Trials, where you can actually see the names of people who were charged with Obeah through the years, going all the way back to at least 1916 anyway. It doesn't include those who were charged prior to that, to the time when Obeah was in fact outlawed in 1898. So as you can see, most of these people have been found guilty. A handful have been acquitted. There was one man here in Mandeville, George Spence, who was charged with possession of Obeah materials, and he was acquitted. Most were imprisoned, and others are unknown. But as you can see, this was a major problem in the Caribbean going way back since this law was enacted. Today, Obeah is still common in Jamaica. It is still very prevalent, often in the form of what are known as guard rings or pendants or necklace. Often these are charm jewelry that are designed to protect the wearer from evil. These guard rings have become controversial on the island due to their popularity among so-called bad men. Since Obeah is used as both a means to curse someone as well as a means to protect someone, guard rings in particular are used as protective devices to ward off evil and even death, to render someone invisible to authorities, hence their popularity among the so-called criminals. But they're also increasingly popular in schools to the point where it has become an epidemic. And many schools in Jamaica is still, by the way, a Christian society. Many schools in Jamaica have been trying to find a way to outlaw them. Often, however, this is hard to do. As many historians have pointed out, guard rings is just the latest in a common belief among Jamaicans that you need protection.
Smith, let me ask you to start us off. Tell us, as Fairlington says, they're not new in Jamaican culture, but we seem to be hearing a lot more about them now. We're hearing them in the songs. We're seeing more and more people speak about them, and so on. What do we know though about these pieces of jewelry, guard rings? What are they?
Well, it's more than about rings. It's about guard, that people always feel that they need a guard. And that's so it could be a chain, It could be just a button. It could be as the principal said, the girl came back with a watch. It is what you think, that you need this guard. You need to be protected from harm. And it goes even further than that in the wider society. Little kids, little girls always used to wear a red ribbon to school. And part of that red ribbon was the guard, the color red, the guard. And the little boys probably have a button on the shirt inside. I spoke to one of my friends in St. Thomas who told me that his grandmother used to pin this button inside his shirt when he was going to school as a guard. But then it wasn't, maybe they weren't as open as now. And there's also that saying in Jamaica that guard no man, harm no man, but let no man harm you. And it is part of an African philosophy that came down from the Bongo tribe, which is that is the rule in that tribe: harm no man, but let no man harm you. It's very deep, the whole business of the guard in the society. Now, how it is playing out in the schools now, with the amount of money that these rings cost, and what happens when people fight over them. Something else that is creeping in, and that is maybe what we have to look at.
Hold there for me, Dr. Smith. Hold there for me before you go to the schools issue. I just wanted you to follow up a little bit more on that issue of it as an African retention. Because as you said there, red ribbon in the little girl's hair, I remember the saying that you put something red over a baby crib and it frightened Duppy. And it frightened Duppy. That's what. So you're saying all of this is part and parcel.
All of this, even the way that some people use the Bible. You don't read it. You open it at the Psalms and place it by the baby head to guard the baby. So it is. I mean, the guard is really. It is just. I mean, you could go on and on with how the different ways that we, bush is not just rings. Bush bath. You get a bath to ward off anything. So it is part of the psyche. It's deep coming in our people.
Okay, so what then?
As superstitious and as ridiculous and as many of these beliefs of protection and needing guard rings might sound to many people, this all is simply part of a tradition that will most likely not go away. During the era of colonialism and slavery, many practitioners of West African religions, traditional religions, often hid their beliefs underneath Christianity, but ultimately these beliefs have now returned to the forefront of these cultures. So maybe they're not going away, and we've seen many attempts over the years to reclaim a lot of these practices, whether it's Voodoo, Santeria, or Obeah. So anyway, this is just part one of my video on Obeah, and part two will be about some common Jamaican beliefs, not just Obeah, but also duppies, duppies. And I will be back with that for next time. Anyway, let me know what you think. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my videos. That would be greatly appreciated. In the meantime, see you next time. Be kind.